Hey there, dear ones. I just wanted to pop in and talk a little bit about writing, as I do. And specifically, I wanted to dive into this idea of meet yourself on the page. What does it mean? Because it's a really simple phrase, and it's something that's really important. It's something that I think hey Peggy, we are afraid to do, that we haven't necessarily been taught to do. To meet yourself on the page means that you are willing to break through a lot of layers of armor, a lot of different defense mechanisms that you've been taught. To meet yourself on the page means that you are deciding that you're not going to be as afraid as you've been to see your words appear before you. It means that you are deciding you can be louder and stronger than the inner critic, than that mean high school English teacher, than the part of you that's saying, oh my gosh, I have so many other things I need to be doing right now. And so meet yourself on the page has become really the core of tons of the work that I do now with people, because it's really so much less about the outcome. It's really less about what you churn out in the end. It's not about putting out a piece of content that you can publish necessarily, though it might be. It's really about saying, okay, I'm going to spend this time right now being here with myself and a blank piece of paper that could hold absolutely anything when I'm done with it. And I may want to burn it, and I may want to just turn the page and decide that it never happened. I may forget about it completely, or it could be the core of some really important idea that's just being born within me. So this idea of meet yourself on the page it's simple to say, right? But like I said, there's so many things that keep us from doing it. So what does it take to kind of break through and get comfortable and find your way? So often it's writing prompts, right? That's what I offer when I do my online writer's circle. It's what I offer when I do the free community writing practice sessions that I offer each month. The next one is coming up on Thursday, November 29th at noon Eastern, and it is free and open to everyone. You just join us on Zoom and you bring your pen and your journal and a little bit of bravery to meet yourself. You know, there's other people you're going to be writing with, and you have a chance to talk with them a little bit, but you can skip that part. You just need to show up for yourself, right? So this weekend, I was going through something really tough, and I knew that the only way I could get through this was to write through it, because I had to keep going through my day. I had to continue all my relationships. I had to show up and be mom. But I could sneak away for a little while. And in that time, I sat down and I wrote a thank you note to something that I hate. I wrote a thank you note to a loved one's addiction. And I would invite you to think about what it might be like to write a thank you note to the shadow. And that may be the shadow of someone's death. It may be the shadow of someone's addiction. It may be the shadow of your own. It may be some pattern you just can't seem to break. And why specifically am I talking about writing a thank you note? There's something powerful in that, because it has a set form, right? You begin with a date, you begin with dear blank, and then you start writing, and you realize that, your main goal is to say, I appreciate this thing that you did for me. But you also often want to say a little more and say, oh, this is how my day is, and this is what it made me feel when you did or offered this specific thing. And you give someone a little window. But of course, I'm asking you to write a thank you note to the shadow, right? So how does that work? Because you want to be authentic when you're doing this whole process of meeting yourself on the page, right? This is not a time for bullshit. This is not the time when you're going to, just spew out some hearts and flowers and make somebody feel better. You're too busy for that. You probably have to pretend that enough in your regular everyday life. No. Meeting yourself on the page is about being brutally honest. or at least getting to that point where you can be brutally honest. Because I found when I sat, and this weekend, I was working on this thank you note to a loved one's addiction. I was confused and I was angry and I didn't really know what to do with my feelings. But I couldn't give myself permission just to rage. I instead had to say, okay, how can I make this palatable to myself? And so it ended up becoming a letter that allowed me to be really honest about all the different ways that I have coped, and all the ways in which I have shifted, and all the different ways that I have changed, and all the different ways that I have learned how to become myself in spite of the difficulty. And also that I'm strong enough to say, hey, I need this to change because I need you, addiction, to change. So what would it be like for you to sit down and write a thank you note to the shadow? And maybe you're not ready to sit down and write the whole letter, but maybe you're ready to walk around today and just wonder, what difficult and dark thing do I want to enter into a dialogue with? What thing am I willing and ready and able to meet on the page, even if it's just for a couple of minutes? What can I prioritize enough in my own life and in my own hurt and in my own story to write a letter to? So that, that won't necessarily be the prompt that we have when we meet together to write on the other side of Thanksgiving, but it may be something that touches along that sort of thing, because that's what a lot of the writing that I offer people is, both let's dance with the shadow and dance with the light. I want you to bring in your love of mystery and of sparkles and unicorns and whatever it is that makes you come alive and lights you up and feels like a really nice escape from our really difficult world. Oh, thank you, Peggy. But I also want to give you a space to wrestle with the stuff that's too hard to talk about too much of the time. Because we are a balance and we are a mix of all of these shadows and all of this light. And if we deny one, we are going to constantly be living in deficit. We are constantly going to be craving the other side. And think about all the stories that you love to read. Think about the stories you love to watch. They are a constant play of shadow and light. They are a constant barrage of saying, thank you, I appreciate you, and no, you will not do this, right? How can you recognize those competing powers that are within you? It's by meeting yourself on the page. So my wish for you today is, my ultimate wish is that you give yourself at least a half an hour to sit down and scribble, right? I believe that that's where so much of the magic is. That's why I make space for writers and creatives and people who don't even think they're writers yet to sit down and do this every week. But I also would just love to know that you're thinking about what it might mean to meet yourself on the page. And that may be that you're meeting yourself on the Post-it note. It's wherever you begin, that you start recognizing that there's worth and validity and necessity in taking the ideas that are swimming around in your head and that are constantly kind of at you and putting them on the page so that you can see them in a new way and so that you can be freed from them, so that then you can enter into a relationship with them. You can enter into a new part of relationship with yourself. So I would hope you will be able to make it with me for our free community writing practice on Thursday, November 29th at 12 noon Eastern. The link is here in this video. And there's no strings attached. There's just you and giving yourself a little time, because I think if all of us did that, and I mean like in the great big grand scheme of the people on the other side of the aisle, on the other side of the PTA meeting, the people you just can't even imagine have an introspective life, have a life of thoughtfulness, have a life of deep inner compassion that you want to cultivate for yourself. What if we all did this? What if we all said, screw it, I don't care if I'm a writer or I'm not a writer? What if we met ourselves on the page and began that as part of a healing process? Because we know that those ripples move outward and outward and outward. Write a thank you note to the shadow. Write a thank you note to the person you find it impossible to thank. See it as a writing exercise. You don't even have to mean it at first, but I bet you will as you go on. So I hope to see you guys in a couple of weeks on the other side of Thanksgiving. And keep writing. Be well.